Boris and Matt here with another absolutely amazing Tech Corner video for you guys. And Matt, why don't you tell them what we're talking about?
Today, we are going to be talking about electric cars as well as autonomous cars. So, electric cars are cars that run on electricity, and autonomous cars are cars that drive themselves. So, Boris,
Riveting
what do you think?
explanation of this. Yes, so why don't we go over electric vehicles? We'll include not just cars, but all kinds of vehicles in the discussion. Obviously, they're not commonplace yet. They're becoming popular for sure, with the Tesla kind of spearheading that movement. Before that, you kind of had the hybrid, and now people are just going electric. So the production cost and in terms of emissions is actually higher for electric cars than standard vehicles. Most people don't know that, and that's because of the lithium-ion batteries. So it actually costs more in emissions and produces more emissions than a standard car to produce an electric car. Of course, you're looking at this as a trade-off because you're saying, well, in the long run, that car is more emission efficient for the environment, etc. in the long run, right? So this is mainly because of the mining of the metals for the lithium-ion battery, right? So as long as that tech keeps improving and there's more demand for it, I'm very certain that those emissions will go down because they're going to get more efficient at running that kind of a business through those mining of the metals.
So it's interesting because it actually is very similar to what we've talked about before with solar panels, or if we haven't talked about it, we definitely should have an episode on that. But it's a very clean product when you're using it, but actually to produce it is a different story, which I think not a lot of people know about. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Well, to that point, actually, you can run electric cars on coal. And I don't think people realize that. So if you use coal to run the electric car, you pretty much have the same thing as the standard car. Obviously, everyone's banking on the fact that electric cars are going to use hydro or solar.
Right, yeah. Oh, it also depends on how the electricity is produced, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right, so there's a lot of intricacies that I think you guys should look out for, and who's producing the car and the make and whatever. If you're looking into one, how they make it, what emissions they use, how cost effective are they, what are their long-term future plans.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more complicated than it seems. We're just like,
Absolutely.
Oh, electric car, like great, like it must just be perfect. But I think as it grows, it'll definitely, like any new tech, it'll get better in a lot of ways. So now I want to dive into the pros and cons of an electric car. Some of these are obvious, some of these are less obvious, like we just mentioned. Obviously, first pro, government subsidies. I'm sure many of you are aware of this. If you're using an electric car, or even I think to an extent a hybrid car, the government will provide you with subsidies, which is great because you get some money back. And it's like a little bit more than just a pat on the shoulder. It's, money in the wallet, which is always nice. And obviously another pro is you don't have to pay for gas. And the average, at least American, spends $2,000 to $4,000 per year on gas. So that definitely cuts costs for you. And it's also, you're putting less crap in the environment, right? Which is, again, a huge benefit. It's eco-friendly, like I just mentioned. You're producing less toxic smoke or gases and putting that into the environment, which is amazing. Actually, another really cool thing is you don't have to service these engines as much. There's less moving parts. You don't need to lubricate anything, so you don't need to bring it into service stations as much, and that's definitely great. Then on to some of the cons. Obviously, the upfront costs are up there for sure. It takes quite a bit to get up and rolling, but after that, it kind of pays for itself at a certain point. And then I think, as we mentioned before, the cost of manufacturing actually is not the greatest for the environment. And also at this point, as it's still kind of a new product, they haven't exactly figured out how to dispose of an electric car as they've kind of figured out with normal cars. So that's something that could be definitely a con in the future, and we'll have to refine for sure.
You know what though? I remember, I think Elon Musk was talking about this, and don't quote me if I'm wrong. Don't give me a lot of hate in comments. But I think he was saying that they're going to just replace the batteries, and they would do it in a way where they come in Like they come into the night or something, take your car, like they take their, like the car drives itself to Elon Musk's house and they change it for you, comes like some very convenient way. Now obviously those are like preliminary plans, but the fact that they're thinking about that,
planning for it,
should give people some confidence.
Some positive insight, yeah. And I could totally see Elon Musk coming into your home in the middle of the night. He's basically the Batman of like our era, so if anyone's gonna save us, it's him.
If you haven't noticed, somebody has a man crush on Elon Musk.
He's a great
it's
guy.
not me, and there's two of us here, so I'll leave that one to you.
He's a great guy. So actually, speaking of Elon Musk, why don't we talk about self-driving cars and how that affects things?
Sure. So basically, autonomous cars or self-driving cars could reshape the whole industry, and I'm not just talking about a personal car. I'm talking about manufacturing, taxis, limos, buses. There's like multiple industries that are involved with driving and transportation, of course. So autonomous cars are really kind of it's still obviously very new, but obviously Uber, Tesla, all these companies are now experimenting with not having a driver, not having the driver have to do everything, right? So the effect of this would be, in theory, the effect of this is there's going to be less accidents because computers are less prone to making mistakes on the road versus humans. Humans have elemental factors, right, that we go through every day. So you wake up, you have a bad day, you're groggy, you didn't have your morning coffee, you're stressed, you've been working long hours, etc., 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 etc. The computer would not have these factors in play. It would just be programmed to do what it needs to. You can argue that the computer needs 10 million more data points to make the right decisions every time, versus, logically a human, if he's in that situation or she could make that decision. But that's kind of the data that they've been gathering, and that's the data that they're trying to make the tech work on. The Department of Energy actually, Matt, I don't know if you know this, the Department of Energy actually said it can go one of two ways in terms of how many emissions it's going to create, right? Because they're saying, well, if you're ride sharing a lot more, if you're not relying on your car to do like very small things because you're inconvenienced, and yes, I'm just saying, it's a nice way of saying people who are lazy and
might be more lazy.
Right? So basically they're saying they could reduce emissions by 90%, or because it's so convenient, on the flip side, it could increase emissions by 200% because people are just going to be like, oh, it's so convenient, I'll just like automate everything, like drive me everywhere, like to the smallest places. So that's going to be interesting to see if it actually saves or produces more emissions, and that's kind of a conversation nobody has or has even thought about, which is an interesting one, because I would like to see the companies producing this tech, how they're going to market. Are they going to say, are they going to go after convenience? Which ones are going to go after, we're going to save emissions, stuff like that. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, because if you work farther away, like you might be more excited about that, like, or more happy to take a job that's far away because it's like, whatever, I'm just gonna chill in my car. Meanwhile, you're harming the environment a lot more than if you were working a lot closer. Like, there's so many ways that you could actually take advantage of that. And actually, like 95% of cars are like they're parked 95% of the time. Like, so you're not using your car, but all of a sudden, if you introduce self-driving into play, or you're doing ride sharing, your car is going to be out there all the time, like doing all sorts of havoc on the environment. So it could be a good thing, a bad thing. Like, I think if it paired with electric cars, and especially if electric cars started where you were using you're using electric energy that was produced efficiently, that could definitely be a great thing. But if you have a self-driving car ripping around, throwing gas and smoke into the air, like, that could definitely make that 200% a reality.
Yeah. So actually, Matt, to that point, I just recalled a conversation. I've had this conversation with a few people. So a lot of people say this, and I think it's important to touch on. Self-driving cars are going to kill a lot of jobs.
Yep.
That's what people are saying, right? But the flip side to that is, see, this is the funny thing about humans. The flip side to that is humans are always saying, oh, I hate driving. Oh, I hate inefficiency. Oh, I wish I could get to places faster. Oh, I wish I could be productive on my 40-minute morning commute. So then companies say, okay, well, here's a way you could be productive on your 40-minute morning commute. Oh, are you going to take this guy's job now? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, there's always something.
So I think that's a discussion that's very interesting we might have down the road as it becomes like more of commonplace for ride shares to use automated cars. But I think, what's your opinion on that anyway? I've never talked to you about this.
I'm not too sure. I'm pretty against cars in general. I prefer commuting. I would love riding a bike, but I don't want to take that neutral stance there. But honestly, I just want to see how it plays out because people say they want to be productive in their commute, but I could totally see Boris here just chilling there playing Pokemon Go for 40 minutes. So who really knows, right? But the idea of it seems to make sense because like you won't need your car as much. It's just like sitting there doing nothing 95% of the time. You might as well be going out making you money. It could also reduce traffic if there's less people driving because they could rely on these automated cars. Like that could be a good thing too. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. So
okay, last question then. I'm going to ask Matt a very important question. Would you, Matt, get into an autonomous car right now?
Right now?
Right now. If it was outside waiting for us, would you get in?
Man, yeah, 100%. I'm a risk taker. And also, I know there's been...
Big risk taker.
There's been a few accidents, for sure, but I think those are definitely like overplayed. There's like people driving autonomous cars all the time right now. And obviously when an accident happens, people are going to like freak out about it because it's like, oh, robots and stuff, right? But there's way more accidents made by drivers happening all the time because let's face it, you're probably not as good a driver as you think you are. So I think we're probably at the end of the day in safer hands with Google overseer taking me to McDonald's.
In natural tech corner fashion, I'm gonna go against Matt and give a counter argument. Because here's the thing though, I didn't want to have this discussion, but you know what? We're having a good time, so we're gonna have this discussion. The argument is, oh yeah, there's so many people get into accidents all the time. Yeah, because people are driving all the time. There's like in correlation to how many people drive, there's very few autonomous cars. So if there's no data yet that can concretely say autonomous cars are safer. There's just not enough data to give that as a concrete answer, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how these companies come out and make these claims or market it that way if they do, and then are going to be able to back it up after accidents specifically.
Yep.
Because that could be a PR nightmare.
We'll have to see. And actually, that kind of ties into what I want to discuss next, because actually, this is probably also something I'm not too sure a lot of people are talking about, but how actually insurance affects is going to be changing because of this, right? So I'm not sure if any of you know, but there's been the Google accident that happened recently, as well as the Tesla accident that happened pretty recently. So people are like definitely really concerned about this. But so how will insurance change, right? Because it's definitely going to affect a lot of things. If there is a 90% reduction in accidents, where does insurance come into play if there's no accidents for them to be, insuring you on? On top of that, there's gonna be all sorts of different collisions because there's gonna be the human element where it's like there's a perfectly driving autonomous car that's using like science and like magic to drive, and then you have, Boris ripping down the streets, half driving, half playing Pokemon Go, and then he causes the accidents. So how does that affect insurance? On top of that, there's going to be a lot more different things like sensor damage, or what happens if a satellite fails. All this new technology needs to come into play when it comes to insurance. So we're in an interesting time, and I think it's gonna be cool. There's a lot of cool things. I personally trust in Mr. Musk, but we'll have to see what happens.
All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up Tech Corner for today. I just want to say on camera that I don't drive with my phone in my hand ever. Okay? I'm a responsible driver, so don't listen to Matt. Make sure you subscribe down below. We're going to be producing one of these every single week, so you don't want to miss out on this awesome information. And also down below is the Facebook link, which you're going to go and you're going to like us on Facebook. Why, you ask? Well, we produce micro content throughout the week before a big video at the end of the week, so don't want to miss out on that. See you next week.
Oh wait, I want to add one last thing, because Boris said he wanted to say this and he's too nervous to say it, so I'm going to say, make sure you Pokemon Go to the YouTube subscribe button. Have a good one. Access Tech Corner.